What is going on, everybody? Welcome to your opening drive for the week of November 17th. We are in an interesting 2 weeks of the Buckeyes schedule. So,
Oh yeah.
um, yeah, good things there. Brought to you as always by the Barn Baseball and Softball Academy, Cornerstone Home Remodeling. As always, I am Jeremy the Couch Potato, trying a new background for those of you on YouTube. Opposite side of the screen, we got Coach Slate, who loves technology tonight. What is good, sir? Oh, you froze.
Oh, there we go.
You
We're scrambling over here right now, man. Some technical difficulties, but we're here. We're making it happen. We're making it work. How's your weekend been, man?
Good. Pretty low key. Watched some ball yesterday. Tried to be productive around the house today, and yeah, so that is that. How was week 2 of no football? What's the routine looking like in the Slater house?
It's been a lot of gymnastics. Week 2 is different though, man. It's like now, I get the 1 week where it's like, all right, I'm really bummed that we're not still playing. But now week 2, week 3, it's like, okay, now I'm really starting to think about next year, putting together some philosophy things. There's a chance I may be coaching a different position group next year. So, just trying to lay the groundwork for that, man, and ready to get to work on next season. It's crazy how quick you turn it around, but, you got to do it, man. It's year 15 is over, ready for year 16.
Heck yeah, that is awesome. So yeah, the Buckeyes go to Chi-Town yesterday and came out a little flat, but exerted their dominance, I guess you would say. At that point, talent matters. Win 31-7 after going down 7-0 and just kind of looking flat on both sides of the ball to start the game.
Yeah, no doubt. I was this is a tough game. I think, coming off of Oregon, there was a little bit of a letdown. Obviously, feeling like you should have won that game, and so you come off of Oregon. You're coming up against a team who just got their doors blown off by Indiana, so they've got something to prove. And you kind of come out really sluggish because you may be looking forward to Penn State. So you pull out an ugly win. Then you go to Penn State. You play a pretty complete game. Could have scored some more points, left some more points out there. And then, now you're in that point where it's like, okay, what do I need to do to make sure we're getting ready for Indiana, right? That's the game that you're probably looking forward to. And I know Ryan Day says, they're looking at each game like a playoff game, but it's tough. It's tough to stay, locked in 24/7 when it comes to playing teams that you just know you're better than. And Northwestern did some decent things, man. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and take away anything from them. Their quarterback, probably played his best football of the season. And those are things that you live with as a defense. And so I think once they decided to focus and lock in, they showed that they are the number 2 team in the country, obviously scoring 31 straight. So, I'd like to see us get off to a little faster start. Hopefully we do that against Indiana, but nonetheless, we came out with the dub, and that's what matters, man.
Yeah, and seemingly healthy. I know G was a little dinged up, but I think he probably was just being held out precautionary. Monitor, it'd be interesting to monitor JJ's ankle, and we'll get into that as we go on down the line. I thought it was interesting to see Quinshon look like Quinshon finally again. Makes you wonder if that little procedure he had in the off week maybe had still been bothering him. But he just looked physical again.
Yeah, he did, and it's him and Trey. I mean, we said it a couple weeks ago, or might have been last week. They've been really alternating, like who has a good game, who doesn't have a good game. It's been like every other game where Quinshon has really stepped up. I like the different ways that we're getting him involved in the game. whether it's the short passes out of the backfield, he's a guy that is a rhythm guy. You got to understand he's used to getting 24, 25, 26 carries a game. And so maybe through the first 7 or 8 carries, he's not going. He's only getting 3 yards, but then he pops one on carry number 10, and now he's rolling. And so this is a guy that has got to get in rhythm. And he did, man. Like you said, there was a 3rd and 2 or 4th and 2, something like that, where, he gets stoned right at the line of scrimmage, but he just shrugs the guy off and then makes a great play, gets 6, 7 yards when we needed it. And so I love seeing that physical side of him. I think that's why you've seen the last couple of weeks that he's been the first back out on the field, because I think, Coach Locke knows that he's a guy that physically he's got to get in a rhythm. And I thought him and Trey did a great job, especially in the third quarter, really closing out the game. I think the Buckeyes ended with right around 170 yards, 175 yards rushing. And that doesn't include Will Howard really doing much of anything in the run game. And so I was very pleased with how Quinshawn and Trey played for sure.
Yeah, and I think Quinshawn's physicality, and I've said it before, has really rubbed off on Trey.
Yeah.
And I love it. And I like to see the guys doing the games acknowledge the health issues that Trey's had and how much of a difference that makes on this team. Speaking of guys that do the game, Jake Butt is really good at what he does.
Yeah, he's good. He's good. I don't like giving the Wolverines much credit, but he's solid, man. It's not a terrible thing to listen to somebody who actually knows the game of football, gives some really good insight, is, unbiased in his opinions about it, whether he went to Michigan and hates the Buckeyes or not. I think he does a really good job.
Yeah, and his love for the community of Pickerington is always cool to hear him talk about, which, I mean, that is a football community. So it makes sense. I did have Quinshawn listed under my good because I thought he did look like himself, but we'll get into that in a second. Just overall takeaways. I thought the environment was cool. 80% Buckeye fans, if not more.
Yeah.
And you heard the OHIO going around. And like you said, Northwestern's quarterback played a really, really good game at the beginning. But outside of him, I don't know that there was anything remarkable for them. And I think there were some good things for the Buckeyes we'll talk about in a minute.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought the environment was really cool, man. There's something nostalgic for me when it comes to you seeing a program like Ohio State play in a smaller venue. Maybe nostalgic's not the word, but it just reminds me of big time high school football. And that is something that, I really appreciate. And I know the guys really appreciate as well. I mean, you could see in pregame or when the Buckeyes arrived that they were really trying to take that in. You're playing at Wrigley Field. This was a once in a lifetime thing. It's probably not going to ever happen again. And shout out to Northwestern for figuring out a way to make sure that they're while their stadium's under construction and, they've done a really good job in playing in their temporary stadium, trying to create the best atmosphere possible. I thought they did a really good job with Wrigley as well. The field looked like it was, well maintained. There wasn't too much slipping going on. A lot of the issues or worries about, the walls being close to the end zone really never, came to fruition. I would have loved to see a picture of the Buckeyes at halftime and where they were. I was listening to Jay Book on one of the podcasts, and he said he just pictures them getting orange slices and applesauce and stuff at halftime, which I thought that was great, man. But it was definitely a cool environment. I'd love the scene outside of the stadium as well. I mean, it was just a sea of Buckeye fans, and so Buckeyes will travel, especially if it's within 6 hours, 8 hours, whatever it is. They will travel, and so I thought it was a really cool environment, and you could tell the guys really enjoyed it too.
Yeah, for sure. And we've talked about survive in advance. 7 ranked teams lost yesterday.
Yeah,
including just like Miami got last week, BYU finally got this week.
Yeah,
and the Big 12 is shaping up to be real interesting. So that'll be interesting to see, do we get Colorado, BYU? Do we get Colorado, Arizona State? I don't know. But with a game like Northwestern, on the Buckeye front, there's not an abundance of things to talk about. Obviously, when we do our Before the Battle episode, what's a Hoosier edition, that could be quite lengthy because there's a lot to divulge in there.
Oh,
And also, I really cheered for Signetti, but the more I hear Signetti talk, I hope we win by 100. I understand being confident and hyping your guys, and you have to. That's your job as a coach.
Yep.
But at the same time, you're still Indiana.
Yeah.
You haven't played anybody this year.
Yeah.
So that's going to be real interesting to see what happens in that game. And we'll dive into that deeper. So before, we dive into the good, bad, ugly, because like I said, there's not a whole lot to talk about. I don't have a single thing Buckeye related for bad or ugly.
Yeah.
We also will, after we do that, just go over a couple of other things, some roster management stuff, recruiting stuff, just to kind of give you guys an idea of how we anticipate this one going. With Slate's technical difficulties, there will be no film on this episode.
Yeah.
Just Slate in a phone window. So he sounds good coming from his phone, though.
Yeah.
Honestly, for the good, my biggest thing was adjustments.
Yeah.
Northwestern had 151 yards on their first 2 drives, 117 on their next 7. So you're at not even 20 yards per drive.
Yeah.
I don't know how many of those were 3 and outs. The other thing I thought, as far as adjustments go, was the slow start, but then obviously being able to rattle off the 31 answer and not give up anything else.
Yep.
Along with sticking with the run game, which in a way is an adjustment. Because when Ohio State needed to establish the game, they stayed with the run, but they leaned on the pass a little bit.
Yep.
And then, poof, fourth quarter comes. Trey and Quinshawn are popping 9, 10, 14, 14. I forget what the sequence of runs, but there were a lot of them there.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's the one thing that we've got to make sure that we continue to do is to stick with the run game. Understand who we have in the backfield. The first quarter we may only get 3-4 yards a carry, but one of those guys is going to break one. The offensive line is going to create a crease, and then it's going to get the run game going. But in the meantime, you can also take some shots down the field like we did. We can really stretch out the defense. We can really attack the middle of the field. Obviously, I think we have 3 of the top 10 receivers in the country, and Will Howard is playing very, very good, accurate football right now. And so, we're a really tough team to beat. And once that run game gets going, and now you're talking about having to defend every single area of the field. The offensive line starts getting some confidence, and it makes things very, very difficult for the defense. And so I was very happy to see the Buckeyes really lean on the run game in that second half to really establish themselves, because this is a confidence thing for our offensive line. They've already shown once that they can be a dominant offensive line like they did against Penn State. We need them to continue to grow and to continue to show those things consistently when we need them. And I thought they did that very well on Friday. So that was definitely going to be one of my goods as well, was the run game. The big good for me, though, was how the defense, like you said, adjusted. I was really happy to see, some of the tackling issues that we've had kind of get mitigated. The tackle that we had with Caleb Downs, it was just like the perfect form tackle and something that you could just show at a clinic to every level of football. Like, this is how you are supposed to tackle. I loved seeing the way that we were getting after the quarterback, really trying to create some issues. Shout out to CJ Hicks. He said he wanted to be on the edge. He was out on the edge, and they only credited him with a half a sack, but there was 2 sacks that he was in on. And so, I was very happy with the adjustments, and I was very happy with the way the defense played in the second half. And so that was definitely the first really big good for me.
Yeah, absolutely. I had the D line written down, 4 sacks, but it just felt like they were wreaking havoc all day. They may
Yeah.
not have always got there, and that's the thing. I know we're on the tail end of the season, but whatever has changed in that room is working.
Yep.
And when it fully comes full circle, then it's going to be scary because you're already seeing Jack Sawyer be Cotton Bowl Jack Sawyer again. And that is scary because that's a frightening dude.
Yeah.
The other big thing for me, I mean, obviously Will Howard, that's a given. Punt block team, that's a given. Those guys are playing with their hair on fire. But scheme, I don't know if these last couple of weeks are our opponents taking away a Mecca, or if it's Chip and Ryan Day showing you we are going to scheme for whatever guy we want to. And in this case, it was Jeremiah and it was Carnell Tate.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think, that's the one thing as a defensive coordinator, you've got to sit down when you sit down in meetings, you're talking with your defensive staff about what you need to take away to win the game, right? So if I'm game planning for Ohio State, what do I need to do? I need to decide if I want to take away the run, force Will Howard to beat me, and if I do that, then I got to understand the receivers that we have out there as well. And so when you talk about the pass game, is it okay? We're going to really work to slow down the run, and then we're going to take away one of these receivers. We're going to make Carnell be the one that beats us. If Carnell's the one that beats us, then we can live with that. And so I think with the Buckeyes and what they're doing right now is they're really showing like, okay, you might be able to take away one of these guys, but the other two are going to step up and do their thing as well. And Trey's going to do a good job of catching the ball out of the backfield, and Quinshawn's going to do a good job of catching the ball out of the backfield. So it really makes things extremely difficult for defensive coordinators. I mean, you just got to pick your poison and you got to stick with it. And if that means, we're going to take away a Mecca, all right, well, then you're going to get another game like JJ had. You're going to get another game like Carnell had. And so it's a really tough predicament for defensive coordinators. And, I'm interested because I know Coach Haynes a little bit, the DC at Indiana. I'm interested to see how they really try to attack us because, if you could take away one, you still have to worry about two. If you can slow down Trey, you still have to worry about Quinshawn. Don't forget, Will Howard can run the ball as well. So there's a lot of different ways the Buckeyes can attack you and make your life miserable.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't wait for that game for a couple of different reasons. And like I said, we'll get into that next week. But that kind of really sums up what I had for the good. Just it was one of those games where you just kind of came in, did your thing, and went home.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And it was real businesslike. I heard that on 97.1 this week or this weekend. It was real businesslike. I love that. Come in, take care of business, and get out of there. The Buckeyes controlled the entire game after they went down 7-0. After that, they were in complete control of the game, and I love that. Wish they would have been able to get the starters out a little bit earlier, which I think they could have. But for whatever reason, Coach Day didn't feel that they needed to. And whatever, I support that too. And so they were in control of the game, though. It was real business-like. Get out of there, get the win. You know what these last 2 weeks mean to your season, to legacies. And so go out there, take care of business, man.
Yeah, absolutely. The only thing I had under the bad column, and this is just football, and it's honestly good coaching. I think we've gotten so spoiled in the day and age of tempo and everything on offense. These ball control offenses where, we're not going to break the huddle until 10 seconds and snap it with 2 seconds. I understand the premise of it. You are out-athleted. You are trying to limit possessions for that Ohio State offense. You're trying to force them to force something to try to maximize their possessions. Ohio State still ended up with 420 yards, but, at some point, man up, line up, and play football, I guess.
Yeah, man, I've been on that other side, man. I've been on the side where, you may be out-talented, and you've got to find a way to limit the amount of possessions for the offense. I mean, there are games that you're going to have to do that. And, you know, if you can execute, then you can put yourself in a position where in the fourth quarter you got a game. The Buckeyes just have such big play ability and are very efficient right now offensively. Pretty much been able to score almost anytime they feel like they need to. It's very hard to even do that because if your drives don't end in touchdowns, then you're going to get outscored. And that's the one thing that you have to be able to. If I'm going to play ball control, like my drives have to end in touchdowns because if they end in 3 points or if they end in a punt where I'm pinning you back, our offense has shown that doesn't matter where they're on the field, they can go score. And so that's one of the downfalls of playing that ball control offense, to really limit the possessions. But sometimes, man, you got to do what you got to do. When you look across the line and you see their Jimmies are better than my Joes, then like we got to line up and play, and we got to figure out a way to give ourselves the best chance to win.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, I understand the X's and O's of it. I mean, honestly, there are a lot of teams that should probably do it and don't. And that's how you see teams get beat like 52-3 or things like that. And you kind of saw it today with the Miami Dolphins. They had touchdown drives of like 15, 14, like a bunch of, long drawn out drives. So you see it at all levels. You like that. But yeah, it makes the game less exciting, I guess. But obviously, when you're the fan of the team who is going to score the points, you want to see them score more. So,
yeah.
For the ugly, I had the Big Ten Network cameras because, Cardinal Tate, great catch. And this is all you see is a dude like this. And then something we kind of hit on earlier, Robert Fitzgerald. I know what goes on at the bottom of a dog pile, and that's football. But to do what he did to JJ in the wide open was just dirty. Yeah. And I'll be interested to see what happens with this because I don't think the young man anticipated the backlash that is Ohio State fans to the point that his X account was deleted by like 6:30 last night.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, I mean, listen, I've been on the bottom of piles. There have been some unbelievable things that have happened on the bottom of the piles that you can't even you can't even you wouldn't believe if people told you. I've been a part of teams where it's happened to me. As a running back in high school, a similar situation. They're cranking on your ankle, trying to do something. Yeah, some people that's their edge. That's what they need to be at their best. I think it's foul. I think Coach Braun probably dealt with that internally. I'm sure because there was a little bit of a longer exchange between Coach Day and Coach Braun at the end of the game. And so I'm sure that was brought up because it was plain as day that Fitzgerald guy definitely cranking on that ankle a little bit. Luckily, JJ was able to come back into the game, but to me, there's no place for that stuff. But there are guys that use those things as their edge. I mean, you think back to when we played Clemson, and J.K. Dobbins and Christian Wilkins was on the bottom of the pile, poking JJ in areas that, nobody wants to be touched.
Right.
It makes things weird and difficult, but that's just the way some people are, man. And so he's getting a little bit of what he deserves. But I hope they take care of it and he's able to learn from it because there's no place for that, man. Even if it wasn't JJ, if it was anybody, could have been walk on. Doesn't matter. There's no place for that type of dirty football.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, Ohio State fans on social media, being Ohio State fans, also brought up the comparison that the hit on Jackson Smith and Jigba against Notre Dame that essentially ended his Ohio State career was a kid who transferred from Northwestern.
Yeah.
So, two different regimes. Obviously, that was, while Fitzgerald was still there. But just just ugly. I mean, like I said, I know dog piles are fair game in a way, but in that situation, it was just, I don't know. It's just bad. But yeah, I mean, that kind of sums up a rather lackluster game. Nothing crazy. Buckeye leaves though. My first one is absolutely no surprise to anybody who listened to Before the Battle, and that is Carnell Tate.
Oh yeah.
You know, I knew the kid was going to score a touchdown.
Yeah.
Ryan Day was going to make sure that he scored. I don't care if he had to put him at quarterback and run a sneak. Carnell Tate was scoring a touchdown in that game.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
But when it happened, it was almost as emotional as the Cameron Babb touchdown. It really was.
Yeah.
And, I just love it. I'm going to give one to JJ. I don't think I've given one to JJ since like week 1. 4 for 100 yards. Probably should have been 5 for 138 and a tutty if we're being nitpicky. And then, to come back in after the ankle thing, run the end around. But that play out of the half, the 68-yard, what he can do on when it looks like there's nothing there, you're running a slant for a 10-yard just trying to get a first down.
Yeah.
And, 68 yards later. And then I'm going to give one to Sonny Styles.
Yeah.
We are getting what we envisioned Sonny Styles to be finally.
Yeah. Yeah, Sonny's a special player. Yeah, so Buckeye leaves. There was a bunch I could have given out, but I really wanted to make sure, I hit on, Carnell Tate, like you just said, man, his story, being back home, there's video of him after the game. He's got a bunch of family around him, and they're just like emotional, loving on him. Like they just know like how important this was for him. And I love the fact that the players and the coaches knew how important it was for him, and for him to get 2 tutties, like that was big, man. And he's also showing like, hey man, like I'm one of the top receivers in the country too. He's such a smooth player. Like everything is just effortless,
Yes.
So that's one of the things I really enjoy watching about him. And he does the dirty work too. He's not afraid to block. He's on special teams, and it's just fun. It's just fun to see. So I was really happy for him to come home and to have that big game. Silver bullet wise, he did not grade out well according to PFF, but Caleb Downs, man, there is just something different with this kid. Like we say it every single week, but like he just really works to do the little things correct. And one of those things that I just absolutely love seeing it. That tackle that he had, that big hit that he had, was textbook. It was something that you, as a coach, preach to the kids if you're really trying to protect them and keep them safe. The leg drive just kept going. Like it was just textbook, and it was awesome to see. And I really hope coaches around the country really use that clip as to, we don't need to go up top and go get a targeting call. We don't need to go in for that big hit. Like you can have just as big of an impact of a hit and do it the right way. And so that was something I love seeing. But Weir's is so lucky to have that kid, man. He's a true quarterback of the defense. He didn't play his best game, but he's still a difference maker for us. Sonny Styles, obviously, he's making plays. He's the best version of himself right now. He's playing confident, which is really good. And then I'm going to give some love to CJ Hicks too, with a silver bullet. I don't think he played necessarily great. But I think he's showing you what he can do when he's put in a position to blitz or be on the edge. He's very quick off the ball. I loved seeing that. I love seeing that sack that he had, that him and Arvell got together. And so that was really good, man. And so I think you're starting to see CJ Hicks carve out a little bit of a role. I'd like to see him get, between like 15 and 20 reps, with some of those being down on the edge. but you're starting to see the athleticism show for him, and I'm just happy for him. Hopefully he can end these two regular season games doing some big things for us, making some plays, and really getting us set up for the Big Ten championship. And so I was really happy to see CJ get in there and get some plays as well.
Heck yeah. Like we've said, the potential's there with him. I just hope that it just meshes. So yeah, that kind of brings Northwestern, it's in the rear view. We're on to the two big ones. But one thing, with 2 games left in the year, we've hit that spot. So I don't know. I assume that everybody listening knows kind of the red shirt rule, but we'll break it down real quick. Used to, basically, if you played in a game, you could not redshirt pending injury. They changed it a few years ago, and now you can play in 4, but that does not include conference championship and postseason. So I'm not going to cover the guys whose red shirts are burnt because there's a lot of them, but just kind of some roster management stuff. So we've got 7 guys who can play in one of the next 2 games and still redshirt. One of which we talked about last week because he lost his black stripe and has seen playing time the last 2 consecutive weeks, and that's Bryce West.
Yeah.
I think Bryce West could potentially play these next 2 weeks. I think he's good enough that I don't know that a red shirt's going to matter.
Yeah.
Max LeBlanc, with the tight end room getting dinged up, that'll be interesting to monitor as well. Ian Moore, they're showing a little more faith in. He actually got play on the line yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
Dominic Kirks, late kid. That'll be interesting to monitor. Julian Sayin, again, I don't know that a red shirt's really going to matter, but he has only played in 3 games, as crazy as that sounds. Yeah. But they've always gone to Devin. Eric Mensah and Garrett Stover, those 2 kind of surprised me. I knew Stover had started playing on special teams, but I didn't realize he was already at that point to where we have to kind of monitor that. And then Mylan Graham and Nick McClarty have both played in 2, so they're good to go the next 2. And then Leroy Roker and Damarian Witten have only played in 1 game, but Roker actually traveled this weekend, which was a change. There were like 7 changes to the travel roster, which I thought was interesting this late in this game.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, just something out to throw it out there to kind of make everybody aware, I guess you would say. I think Bryce West, though, I think his will definitely get burnt, but I don't know that I would confidently say anybody else's.
Yeah, I think Bryce West is really, showing that he is a dog. I think
you called that though.
Yeah, I think him coming in, with the shoulder surgery and having to miss some time, but now he's healthy and lost his black stripe. I think he's peaking at the right time. He's going to provide good depth for us. I mean, he's a special player. I think, he kind of got overlooked in last year's class because he was, he's a Glenville kid. Everybody knew he was likely going to go to Ohio State. And we were, sitting on pins and needles waiting on Aaron Scott to commit. And so he kind of got overlooked. But with him and Aaron Scott, you've got some really, really good corners. I mean, to add them to a young room with, with Calvin Sensom Hunt, with Jermaine Matthews, like those 2 guys, and Aaron Scott and Bryce West, are really going to be battling to be starters if IGB leaves after this season. And so, I think for him to already be getting that playing time and some trust, he got in the first half too, I believe, at corner as well. So there's some things that they really enjoy about him, and I think he's got some versatility. He could play in the slot. He could do some of the same things that we're seeing out of Lorenzo Styles. And so it'll be interesting to see how they use him moving forward. The redshirt rule, like, I'm very glad that it changed because, it's one of those things, kids develop differently. And so, if you put them in earlier in the season and you burn their red shirt, well, then you're at a point where you feel like you've got, well, crap, I got to use him. I burned his red shirt. And so now you get multiple games. I'm glad they don't count the postseason in those games. And so you'll see Bryce West, I think, in these last 2 games, and I think he'll burn his red shirt, but I don't think it matters, like you said, because I think he's going to be, a player for us next year.
Yeah, and I think I can't help but think that Aaron Scott being nicked up kind of helps Bryce West get playing time.
Yeah, for sure.
And we haven't really dove into recruiting. We kind of threw a couple things out there last week, but we actually have legitimate recruiting news from this weekend. Saturday, the Buckeyes get a class of 26 boom. Ohio kid. He's only a 3-star right now, but he doesn't have a composite rating. From Pataskala, goes to Watkins Memorial. Not like a real football powerhouse. Wide receiver Jaden Ricketts, 6 foot, 187, runs at 10.8, 100. This kid can fly. This guy has the makings to me of a Heartline special, though, because his offer list doesn't have any of the big boys on it yet. But I'm going to guess that changes in about the next 72 hours.
Yeah, I think so. He had just picked up an offer from Indiana, actually, before he committed. And so that one was, I think you were already starting to see some of those schools start to reach out to him. But Jaden Ricketts can fly, man. I thought he would have committed earlier than this. I don't know if the Buckeyes are ready to take his commitment, but he's a special player, man. He can fly. He's got some top end speed. If you watch his film, you can really see that he's a very versatile player. He does a lot of defensive stuff for Watkins Memorial as well. Watkins was a little down this year, but his speed is what jumps out. And so you're getting a kid from the state of Ohio who can really take the top of a defense. If you throw him a screen, he can really, make one person miss and get vertical and be gone. So this kid has got the like you said, the Heartline special. He's the type of kid that comes in, maybe takes a year or so to develop, but in the end could be a really good player for us. And so I'm glad we took him. I love getting Ohio kids. I got a couple Ohio kids that are on our current roster right now at Olentangy that I'd love to see the Buckeyes take too. And so, I love when we get in on these Ohio kids early. And so I'm happy this is kids in the class because I think he's got potential to be really good.
Yeah, so speaking of Heartline specials, little tangent. If anybody gets bored this week and wants to watch potentially one of the best high school football games you will ever see, go to the OH Report and watch the Shelby, Ontario game from Friday night when the coach of the Couch Potatoes, possible favorite recruit, at least mine, Bogpen Miller, just unreal. Just watch the fourth quarter. You don't even have to watch the whole game. But spoiler alert, it's fun.
Yeah.
We've talked about Turbo Rogers a lot, and that's what we brought up last week. He officially decommitted from Alabama today. Doesn't sound like a Buckeye commitment is imminent. Says he will decide between Georgia and the Buckeyes on signing day. Well, early signing day is in about 2.5 weeks.
Yep.
So, and it's extended this time. That's another new thing. And it's not Ohio State in recruiting and signing day without a little bit of drama. Despite the good news of Naeem Alford out there, that sounds like he's staying. Sounds like our friends in South Beach have found a drug lord to give them some more NIL money. Sounds like TJ Alford is potentially going to flip to Miami. And again, it's the Miami way of, Ohio State's recruiting him. He must be good. Let's throw a bag at him.
Yeah.
And honestly, though, I don't even know that I would say Mark Fletcher falls under that category of has actually been decent there. Most of these guys that they throw bags at from us, they don't play.
Yeah.
And there's been a whole lot of scuttlebutt that you may see a Justin Scott or a Marquise Lightfoot end up back in Columbus because they're not happy down there. The checks might have a little rubber to them, it sounds like.
Yeah.
But we'll see. But at the end of the day, Miami sucks. In the words of, Kurt Signetti said that, Purdue sucks and so do Ohio State and Michigan. So Indiana sucks and so doesn't Miami. But, also there are a lot of guys who have been committed to the Buckeyes for some time who are getting some bags thrown at them. Coach Prime and the Buffs are coming hard after London Merritt, which for his sake, not just because I want the kid in the class, but I don't see a scenario where Dion is there next year.
Yeah.
He is either in Tallahassee because they somehow raised the money to fire Norvell, or he is wherever Shador goes.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I that's a tough one for me because I think they're recruiting Julian Lewis really hard, and I know
True.
Julian. He's not going to decommit and then possibly, look at committing to Colorado without knowing that Coach Prime is going to be there. Um, I think you're going to see Coach Prime be really involved in the draft process for Shador and Travis, but I do think that you're going to see him just kind of step back a little bit, and it's going to be tough, but you can't baby them your whole life, their whole life, you know what I mean? And so it's tough. I want Coach Prime to stay in Colorado because I think he's doing really good things out there. So that's just the fan in me, though. The other thing too, when it comes to Miami, man, it's like their defense is terrible, atrocious, and so they're going to have to pay extra to get some dogs on the defensive side of the ball. I mean, their defense is not championship level, and when you
No.
get the recruits that they have been getting, like it just to me it comes back to the coaching. It comes back to a lot of different things, but that's the side of the ball that they're got to clean up. And so if they can go get a TJ Alford by throwing them a few $100,000, they're going to try to do that. Hopefully he sticks because I think he's a special player. And I think his relationship with Coach Laurinaitis is really going to go far. But, can never fault somebody doing what they feel is best for their family. And so we'll see.
Yeah, and Wilfong actually said he is more confident that Ohio State gets Rodgers than he is that Alford flips.
Yeah.
So he did put the crystal ball in, and it sounds like Alford's dad has wanted him to go to Miami since his recruitment essentially started.
Gotcha.
Which, the Florida kids, it's always hard. But yeah, you hit on something, and we'll go on a Miami rant for a minute. As bad as that defense is, I don't watch them a ton to know if Justin Scott is getting playing time. But if he's not, that's terrible because that kid's good.
Yeah, he's really good.
Give him a shot.
Yeah.
Julian Lewis, if Colorado gets him, that's when you're going to see Colorado become what we all thought it would be under Dion, because in recruiting, guys follow the quarterback.
Yep.
And if you get a guy as good as Julian Lewis, you're going to start getting dudes.
Yeah. And one thing that gets overlooked with Colorado, and I think their coordinators are really good. I think Coach Shermer has done a really good job of really running an NFL style system for Shador, and that's appealing to kids. They want the best opportunity to go play in the league. And so I think Coach Shermer, you're getting a former coordinator in the NFL, obviously a former head coach in the NFL. And I think he's done a really good job. And I think, for somebody like Julian Lewis, who has aspirations of being a top 10 pick eventually, if you can go play for Coach Shermer, somebody who's been at the highest level and has coached some good football in the NFL, like those are things that are appealing. And so I think Dion's done a really good job of putting together that staff, and it's really paying off for him right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And then it's only fitting that Dion would be involved, and he has said he will be involved in those two draft processes. I mean, it's literally the real life Coach Billy Baker.
Yeah, it really is.
But you know what? Like he hit the nail on the head talking about Travis this weekend, though. He's a good kid. He's not out making waves. He's not out doing the things that you don't want a kid to do. And he seems very grounded in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And he's going to win the Heisman. I don't see a scenario in which he does not win the Heisman now.
I agree.
After Dillon Gabriel's performance yesterday, I think that kind of takes him out. I think it's Travis. I think it's Genty, with Gabriel and Cam Ward sitting there lagging. And Ohio State fans keep going off of Dillon Gabriel and wondering how Will Howard isn't in the conversation, and they want to blame Jerry Emig, and Will Howard has not flashed the way Dylan Gabriel has.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, the Heisman's a lot of flash. You
Yep.
saw it yesterday with Travis, but again, to speak volumes about Travis, it wasn't just Travis that struck the Heisman pose in that celebration. It was basically the whole offense.
Yeah.
So I think it's Travis's, and good for him. Travis Hunter was the first real NIL recruitment, if you remember.
Oh yeah.
To go, committed to Florida State for how long, and then NIL becomes a thing, and now JSU is in the realm, and he goes there, follows Prime to Colorado, plays a stupid high level, and has had good things. So yeah, and we'll see. We're about a month away from the Heisman, and there's still time for Will Howard to kind of try to get into the conversation, get a trip to New York, and that'd be cool if he did. Speaking of Will Howard, totally unsponsored announcement. Anybody that's bored tomorrow night, he's doing a signing of players, 5:30 to 6:30. It's like $70 an item. Just always throwing that out there.
There we go.
But yeah, I think that kind of sums up what I've got for the week.
Yeah, man, that's all I've got too, man. It's sorry for being on my phone. Pretty frustrating, but one quick shout out I want to give. I had the opportunity to go, my buddy Garen Stokes, and my buddy Thomas Rogan, who's the offensive line coach at Dublin Kaufman. I went and watched them play Centerville, and they did not play well. They got beat pretty bad by Centerville, but it's round 3 of the playoffs. They went 2-8 in the regular season, and then won their first 2 rounds of the playoffs, and so they finished at 4-9. But the one thing I want to shout them out for is because this is why I love the expanded playoffs. It's because, especially in the bigger divisions, those teams that are playing these extremely difficult schedules like they had a brutal schedule. They once they get into the playoffs, they're battle tested, and their kids stayed locked in all season long. And so that's one of the reasons why I really enjoy having 12, 16 teams in the playoffs, because you see these type of stories. It happens every year that some team that's a 14 seed or a 13 seed and they go on a good run. Like, it's such a good thing for high school football. I know people will say, "Oh, well, when I was in school, it was 4, and and it was 8." Like, yeah, okay, well, it's not when you were in school anymore. And so I think the kids deserve the opportunities that they are given. And then a school like Kaufman made the most of it. And so shout out to Coach Stokes, man. That was I know the season didn't end the way that they wanted to, but the fact that they were there playing in the 3rd round, the regional semis. That was a big deal, man. So shout out to them, and shout out to the playoff system, man, because you give these kids more opportunities to play in meaningful football. That's what it's about. High school football is the best version of football out there. So the more you can get these kids to play, the better. And I will never complain about giving kids, week 11 for the top 16 teams. So shout out to Coach Stokes and Coach Rogan. It was a good season for you guys, man.
Yeah, there's a lot of good of it. I just hate the fact that the OHSAA gets all the money. And that's a whole nother conversation. And there's no shame in losing to Centerville. That's normally a buzzsaw program. But that's Bobby Carpenter country down there. Which, now his kids, I believe, go to Upper Arlington. And Bobby is one of my absolute favorite sports personalities there is. But yeah, so I think on that note, shout out again to the Barn and Cornerstone. As always, shout out to all you guys listening. As football season winds down, start thinking about, some off-season stuff that you want us to hear or want us to talk about. We'll have a little bit, December, there will be Buckeye Talk. We'll have signing day in there. College football playoff preview, that type of stuff. But yeah, really start thinking about where you want us to dabble in the off season. And with that, we will see you guys for before the battle. What's a Hoosier edition later this